Did that ruling actually help the union campaign at the Philadelphia Starbucks that began in 2019? No, of course not, because the campaign is over. The campaign is dead now.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
From the Washington Post, the National Labor Relations Board asked the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Tennessee to issue an injunction last Tuesday, that would allow the workers to be reinstated at the Poplar Highlands coffee shop in Memphis.
Yes.
Kathleen McKinney, that's the Poplar Highlands Starbucks coffee shop in Memphis. Kathleen McKinney, the NLRB director for the New Orleans region, also said that the company must cease its unlawful conduct immediately so that all Starbucks workers can fully and freely exercise their labor rights. Fantastic. This is fantastic news. From what I am gathering is that and this is about the Memphis 7. These are the 7 baristas at a Starbucks that were fired a couple of months ago. We talked to them right after they were fired. You can go back and listen to that interview on our YouTube channel, on the podcast feed and things like that. But the NLRB is now seeking an injunction from the district court to get them reinstated. And the American Prospect has some really good commentary on this, which is that from the Prospect, Section 10J of the NLRA empowers NLRB attorneys to get injunctions when violations of the law have immediate and serious consequences. But get this, Abruzzo appears to be the first general counsel in at least half a century to use that section to keep employers from illegally thwarting organizing campaigns. Half a century, 50 years has gone by, according to the American Prospect, since an NLRB general counsel has utilized 10J injunctions. And what is the value of that? A 10J injunction is basically like a speed run of or to get you, like, so you know how currently right now they were just talking about the trans healthcare ban in Alabama. There was an injunction placed on that law, on parts of that law, by the district court. So that is not a ruling on the merits of the thing. It's just saying this law can't go into effect until it's run its course, right? Am I making sense? It's not a ruling on the injunction is not a ruling on the merits of the law, on the constitutionality of the law. It's just saying we need time, the courts need time to vet this, to get it through the process so we can figure out if this is constitutional or not.
Put on pause.
Put it on pause. That is what these 10J injunctions do to retaliation, disciplining, firings, and discrimination against union workers during a union campaign. This is not even necessarily if the court issues an injunction and says they have to reinstate these workers. It could come out, it probably wouldn't because obviously they've been retaliated against, but it could theoretically come out that this isn't, actually no, they were fired with cause and they followed their policy. It wasn't for discrimination against their union, union support or anything like that. But issuing the injunction just puts a pause on this if there's enough information that it's possible that this violates the law. Because why? Because workers there obviously know that retaliation is happening. And if they see retaliation happening and nobody is stepping in to stop it, what does that do? That could theoretically put it could dampen organizing efforts. It could influence workers illegitimately to vote against the union. And so these injunctions are so important because the process takes so long. We just told you a story a few weeks ago about how in 2022, a ruling finally came through from the NLRB about firings of Philadelphia Starbucks baristas in 2019 that were found to be illegal, and Starbucks was made to offer them their job back and give them back pay. 3 years went by before a final ruling. And so Did that ruling actually help the union campaign at the Philadelphia Starbucks that began in 2019? No, of course not, because the campaign is over. The campaign is dead now. The one at that Philadelphia Starbucks, because the people that were there during the campaign, the organizing committee, they're all gone. Most of them were fired. And resolutions that take 3 years are not helpful.
Justice delayed is justice denied.
Yeah. So you have to have it. You have to have it quick, and so you have to utilize these TenJ injunctions. And the fact that it's been 50 years, that is surprising to me. That's just so shocking. I would almost like to see a fact check on that. But
it would not surprise me. I mean, and as we've said before, Abruzzo is one of the relatively few bright spots for workers in the Biden administration. We need more.
Right.
We need more use of regulatory power in a way that actually helps people. I know that's a crazy radical idea that we would actually use the people's government, what it's supposed to be, we the people, the government that we fund publicly. What if we actually use that to help people? And
what if we enforce the law?
Right. What if we enforce the law not just on poor people, not just on minorities, but on corporations, on the wealthy, where there was actual accountability that was equitable, and where, as you said, enforce the law, because in some cases there are legal protections, but they're not actually being enforced. They are toothless. You have situations where companies and bosses are, they're caught on the carpet, so to speak, but at the end of the day, it's a toothless consequence. It's a letter, a sternly worded letter. Maybe they have to post, the ULP in the break room or something. Really, compared to the consequences that we all face, someone who is fired is losing their livelihood. Their family survival is at risk. I mean, they may lose their home. They may lose everything. Yeah. And so, as you mentioned with the law, the section there on the injunctions, it's about immediate and severe consequences. A working class person being fired or even being suspended without pay, that is an immediate severe consequence, because most of us are living paycheck to paycheck.
Right.
So that's, it is a promising thing to see, and I want to see more agencies take that approach. And I hope that unions at the national level, at the institutional level, will really go all in on taking advantage of this brief window of opportunity, because we don't know how much longer it'll last.
Right. Yeah. It is it is a very bright spot in the Biden administration. Some of the political appointees have been very good and very helpful for working people. And somebody mentioned this in the chat, actually, and Kyle mentioned this during our chat, that the IWW was one of the first unions to actually try to organize Starbucks. And one of the reasons that it was so difficult for the IWW is because in the NLRB, as Rai said in the chat, the NLRB originally ruled that they could not do store-by-store elections, but had to do citywide elections, which can obviously is more difficult because you've got more people, and because since you have more people, you have to talk to more people. Whereas if you're doing store-by-store, you have this really kind of insulated community of folks who are
shared
together.
Experience.
Day in and day out, have a shared experience, and they can they can organize themselves, and then their success begets success, right? So many of these, all of the Starbucks campaigns that have come since Buffalo have either cited Buffalo as their inspiration or others that came after, these people were citing Knoxville. Well, we talked to Knoxville, they cited Buffalo, right? So this is, success begets success. And what would have happened if we had had a Trump NLRB? And the Trump NLRB had ruled against the Buffalo baristas and said, actually, you have to organize every store in Buffalo to win. Well, that would have been a lot more freaking difficult because you can't, it would be much more difficult to talk to all those people and organize them. But instead, these people who started the campaign were able to organize themselves in the way that they saw was most beneficial to the campaign, which makes the most sense because obviously, the NLRA is set out to protect worker self-organization. Frankly, the fact that the boss has any say at all in the bargaining unit is illegitimate. Screw the bosses. It doesn't matter. As far as it, I think ethically and, the boss shouldn't have any say in how workers organize themselves. But I think legally, too, the fact that it has been interpreted to allow bosses to have a say in how their workers organize is nonsense because the NLRA is set out to protect worker self-organization.
Says. That is what it says.
Yeah.
But something, just to piggyback on your comments here about the inspirational aspect of this, where, it's like it catches like wildfire. And probably my favorite comment from the interview we just had with Kyle and Tabitha was, why not us?
Right.
Why not us? And I think that's very important, especially those of us who are in the Deep South, who have been surrounded by reactionary and discriminatory politics, who've been surrounded by anti-union politics and propaganda. You know what? Why not us? We can do this too. This isn't just for New York folks and California folks. We can do it too down here in Alabama, right here in Huntsville, in Birmingham, across this state. And as I discussed earlier in the show, we have a proud history of doing that. A proud history of coming across our differences to build solidarity and build our own power. So really, I take a lot of inspiration from what is happening there in Birmingham with Starbucks and with the other campaigns across the country. It's exciting to see, and it's a good time to be in the labor movement right now. And
Absolutely.
we just need more of us.
Yeah. Rai said every store in the chat, he said every store in Manhattan, which was over 100 stores. Could you imagine having to organize 100 stores at one time as opposed to one? And then after you organize that one, then other people can see that and say, oh, maybe I want to organize my store.
And it's so much easier for the boss to get away with some of these just obscene tactics that they're trying.
Right.
I mean, we see how much Starbucks is getting away with as it is, even with a pretty good NLRB general counsel. So, you're right. It would be so much tougher. And so I know we are pretty hard on like electoral type politics, but this is a situation where, you know what, it did make a difference.
Yeah.
And sometimes those what seem like fairly marginal differences in kind of obscure government bureaucracies can make a real material impact on everyday people's lives.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.